Today is a snow day. It's been snowing pretty consistently for the last like 4 or 5 hours or so. The yard is covered, the roads are covered. There's a good little layer of snow going on outside. And I know that for people who live in like the north, or just people who get snow like much more consistently and more often than we do, will think that there's no snow. Like that's nothing. That is nothing. But I grew up in the South. Like we are not equipped for snow down here. We only have snowstorms like this once every like 3 or 4 years, and we don't know how to handle it. So chances are I will be having a snow day, at least for today, maybe tomorrow as well, and we're supposed to get more snow on Wednesday. So this whole week could end up being a snow week. And I thought, what better type of video to do than recommending books for a snowy day. Also, guess I should acknowledge that since my last video, I did cut off 9 inches of my hair, so back to living that short hair life, and I'm absolutely loving it. Anyway, back to the video. Lindsay recommends books for a snowy day. So when I think of like perfect reads for a snowy day, I think of a couple different things. First of all, I want something that is just so consuming, something that will suck me into the story, something that I can just kind of get lost in the world and the characters, something like a mystery thriller, or even like a really like intense, like plot heavy fantasy book. Or on the other hand, I want something that will kind of warm me up, something that will just make me so happy that I will forget how cold it is outside and just be like completely warm and fuzzy and just, you know, like happy. So I think of like contemporary, romance, things like that, middle grade even. I have a pretty wide variety of books to talk about today. I have a mix of all kinds of different things. I have some young adult, some middle grade, some adult. I have some nonfiction, fantasy, mystery thrillers, all the things, romance. I have a little bit of everything. And maybe if you're having a snow day or you're just like kind of stuck for something to read, then one of these recommendations might be a perfect one to pick up. Also, I want to mention that none of these recommendations are going to be super surprising. I think most of the books I picked out are fairly popular, fairly well liked, or widely read on BookTube. But these are the books that came to mind immediately when I was thinking about snowy day reads. These are the kind of books that I would reach for, and so that's why I'm recommending them. I think I will split them up by genre. That seems like a good way to go. So let's start off with some like mystery thrillers, some books that kind of can suck you in and just get you really invested in a plot from the very beginning. My first recommendation is the only book on this list that I don't actually have physically, and that is My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. This is a mystery thriller about a husband and wife who, to kind of like keep things spicy in their marriage, they start killing people together. And pretty quickly in the book, you figure out that there is much more to this couple than meets the eye. And there's definitely some more stuff going on underneath the surface than the reader knows. And this is such a fun book. It's one of like the most creative, most interesting mystery thrillers that I've ever read. I definitely didn't see a lot of the plot twists coming, and it's a book that kept me so hooked. I think I finished this one in just like 24 hours because I was so into the plot. I didn't even know what was going on in the world around me. A perfect read for a snow day, something that you can just sink your teeth into and get invested in all day long. My next mystery recommendation is one that I think that if you want something, first of all, just very engaging and like will suck you in, but also has a little bit of that like cold vibes atmosphere, then this would be a perfect book to pick up, and that is Long Bright River by Liz Moore. This is a kind of literary mystery. It's about two sisters who have kind of a rough childhood, and when they grow up they go into completely different directions. One of the sisters becomes a police officer in Philadelphia, I think is where she's at. Yeah, Philadelphia. And the other sister becomes addicted to drugs and starts selling herself for money. And at the beginning of the book, the sister who is a cop realizes that she hasn't seen her other sister in a while, and so she kind of starts looking for her, and pretty soon uncovers kind of a mystery where these other prostitutes have been murdered and there's maybe a whole conspiracy going on. The sister gets sucked into figuring out what exactly happened to her sister, but also who's been killing these girls. It's a very engaging, like will suck you in type of book. Another one that I read, even though it's pretty long, I read in a very short amount of time because I just wanted to know what was going to happen next. This takes place kind of in the like winter time. I think it takes place around Christmas, but it's very like cold vibes, like very atmospheric, and something that I would definitely recommend for a snow day. Moving on to another more literary type of mystery, a book that you've probably read. To be honest, like it's a well-loved book, or a well-hated book on BookTube and in the bookish world in general, and that is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Did you see me hit my face with that book. Yeah, it happened. This is a mystery, but it's not really like a whodunit. It's more of like a whydunit, because at the beginning of the book, you learn that one of the main characters has died. And then you spend the whole book figuring out like what were the circumstances leading up to this character's death. And it follows a group of friends who are studying like classics in college. They're all very pretentious. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of secrets amongst this friend group. You're following the perspective of one of the characters who's kind of on the outside of this group. He's in the class, but he hasn't quite been like integrated into the group until this murder happens. And then it's about them just dealing with what they've done, and also us finding out like why exactly it happened. It's a really good book. It's one of my favorites, but it's also a book that will just suck you in. Like, it's long and there's a lot going on. It might be a little bit dense at times, but if you want a perfect book to just curl up on the couch and drink some coffee, sit by a fire, whatever, this is one that will keep you engaged in the story for an entire day. What genre shall we do next? Let's do romance. These books kind of are going to lean more towards just feel good, like make you happy, like the warm and fuzzies to make you forget that it's super cold outside. My first romance recommendation is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I haven't talked about this book on my channel in a while, but this is still one of my favorite books, and one that if you want to feel warm and fuzzy and just happy, perfect to distract yourself from a cold day, definitely pick up Red, White, and Royal Blue. It is an adult, well, it's like a new adult contemporary romance following the first son of the first female president of the United States and one of the princes of England. It's kind of like an alternate history where a woman won the presidential election in 2016, and it's just like the perfect kind of like wish fulfillment and also like escapist type of literature that I love. It was super hyped when it came out, and a lot of people probably have already read it, but if you haven't and you're looking for something just warm and cozy for a nice day, then venture into the world of Alex and Henry, because I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Another romance that I just can't not mention, like I have to talk about this book, and that's The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare, the first book in the Girl Meets Duke series, and also just like this whole series in general, because it is so fun and just so warm and cozy and happy. This book in particular is about a woman who is a seamstress, and she has spent a lot of time and resources and effort sewing a wedding dress for a woman who is set to marry the Duke of Ashbury. And at the beginning of the book, she finds out that the woman has left the man. She's decided to call off the engagement, and so she goes to the Duke's house and she is like, I spent time and money and energy sewing this dress, please pay me for it. And rather than compensate her for her time, he proposes a deal where they get married, and she provides him a son, and he will pay for her to never have to worry about money ever again. And throughout the course of this marriage of convenience type of story, of course, they start to fall in love. And the rest of the series follows the friend group of the main character and their romances with various other dukes. And it's just, it's so good. Like, so heartwarming, so happy. A series that I will continuously reread forever and will recommend forever. Definitely a perfect read, just, I don't know, an all-consuming series for a snowy day. Next up, let's talk about some books that I think are maybe a little bit heavier reads and will definitely bring you more of that like kind of like atmospheric cold vibe if that's what you're wanting, but still some stories that are very consuming and will just wrap you up and you will want to keep reading. The first of those is a favorite book of mine that I haven't talked about in a while on my channel. I read it in 2019. It was one of my favorite books of 2019, and that is Dig by A.S. King. This is a YA contemporary with a bit of a speculative element to it. It's about this family of potato farmers and kind of the issues that they have gone through. It follows the perspective of 4 people that are in some way associated with this family. Throughout the course of the story, you realize that every character is dealing with the fallout of this potato farming family in different ways, and there's also like a greater message of white privilege and systematic racism, and it's a really good book. I mean, it sounds heavy, and it is definitely a heavier read, but it's one of the best YA books that I've ever read. It's set in the winter. It actually takes place around Christmas time, but it's also set in Pennsylvania, and it is just very atmospheric and a favorite of mine, and I would highly recommend more people go and read this because it's so good, and I think more people need to read it. Very underrated. It's a book that I think about almost every single day, and I can't get over how good it is. So everybody should go read it. And it's a very like all-consuming story. Like you will want to read this book quickly and you will want to know what exactly is going on with this family. My other more like kind of heavy literary recommendation is a book that I just don't think I've recommended on my channel in a while, and I just need to remind you that this is my favorite book and that you should read it regardless of what time of year it is, but I think it's especially good for a snow day, and that is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This is about a performance troupe that is traveling around the like northern part of the United States 20 years after a pandemic has basically killed off like 90% of the population. Yeah, not the most timely recommendation, I recognize that, but there's so much more to this book than just like a pandemic story. It's a book that will just suck you in, and you will want to keep reading, and you will want to know what's going on with these characters, and you will want to know how all these storylines tie together. So it's a perfect book to just like escape a snow day. It's a perfect book to curl up on the couch with a blanket, a cup of tea, by a fire, warm socks, whatever it is that makes you happy, and just fall into the story. It's so good. And honestly, like I haven't read it in like 5 years, and I think it's time to reread it. So maybe I'll do that today on my snow day. Maybe I will reread my favorite book of all time. Okay, and one more like more atmospheric kind of, I don't know, cold book to recommend. This is actually a nonfiction book, one of my favorites that I haven't recommended in a while, and that is Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. This is a true account of the 1996 Mount Everest disaster. Jon Krakauer was a hiker on that trip, and so this is like his true like first person account of what happened on the day that all happened, as well as some history of the climbing of Mount Everest, and also just like some insights about like commercializing climbing in general. Although it doesn't sound like the most exciting book, this is such a good book. Like you can tell that Jon Krakauer put so much of his heart and soul into telling this story. It's educational, informative. It's also really interesting to learn more about a tragedy from like firsthand, like from somebody who actually experienced it. Although it's maybe not, you know, maybe not the easiest read, it is a really good book, and it's one that I think would be really good to read on a snow day when you just want to like stay in that cold vibe and also learn something. So can't recommend Into Thin Air enough. You should go read it. And finally, let's talk about some fantasy and sci-fi, some adventure stuff, something that will suck you in and you just will want to keep reading, starting with a middle grade story that again is so highly recommended on BookTube. If you haven't read this book yet, I would honestly be shocked because everybody and their mom seems to have read this book already, but I couldn't not mention it because it's a perfect snow day read, and that's Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. The first book in the Nevermore series. This follows a girl named Morgan Crow who has basically been told all her life that she's a cursed child and she is set to die on her 11th birthday. But when her 11th birthday rolls around, instead of dying, she gets swept away to the magical city of Nevermore by the very interesting Jupiter North. And from there, she is given the opportunity to compete in the Wondrous Society trials to potentially gain membership into this society, and she meets some new friends along the way, and she also uncovers more about herself and also just like this world in general, and it's one of the most fun books that I've ever read. I've said this so many times on my channel before, and I will say it again. I don't really typically love middle grade. I don't tend to reach for that ever, but Nevermore is one of the best books I've ever read, middle grade or not, and I can't recommend it enough. So if you haven't read this book yet, you definitely should go do that because it's amazing and it will definitely keep you entertained on a snow day. Another book that I love and haven't recommended in a while is actually a manga, and that is Death Note by Tsugumi Oba. This is the black edition, so this is actually a bind up of the first 2 volumes of the manga, and I haven't talked about this in a while, but it is like a very like well-loved, like super hyped manga, so I'm sure that you've heard of it. Death Note follows a boy named Light who one day while he's walking home from school, he finds a notebook and he learns that this is a death note, meaning any name that he writes in this notebook, that person will die, and it's all about him trying to rid the world of evil and also getting a little bit lost along the way. And there's a lot more to it. There's more characters, there's all kinds of like plot twists and fun stuff going on in here, and I haven't actually continued on with the manga even though I own volumes 2 and 3, but it's something that I really love and is just like super adventurous, will suck you in. Like there's so much going on. I think the magic of this story is like just wanting to keep reading to figure out exactly what's happening. I'm now like talking about this book and reminding myself why I enjoy it so much. So maybe I will read volume 2 at some point during my snow days. We'll find out. This manga is super good though. Even if it is hyped and even if you have heard 1,000 things about it, I would definitely recommend giving it a go because I don't think you'll regret it. And finally, my last recommendation is actually like a sci-fi recommendation. This is the first book in one of my favorite trilogies of all time, and that is the Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the first book, Illuminae. This is a sci-fi series. As I've already said, it's a space opera. It follows these two characters, Katie and Ezra, as they are escaping from a planet that they were living on that was bombed by this mysterious corporation, and this whole series is about like why exactly this corporation wanted to destroy this planet and what exactly is going on. This book is told in a case file, so there's like emails, IMs, pictures, all kinds of stuff going on in here, and it is just one of the coolest reading experiences I've ever had. I have read the entire trilogy, obviously, and it's just one of my favorite trilogies ever, and I think that if you want to get sucked into something really fun, super action-packed, will just like keep you guessing from page to page, then check out the Illuminae Files. So those are my perfect snow day reads. Those are books that I would definitely recommend if you are just looking for something to fall into, just like block out the world, get sucked into a story, but also books that I think will keep you thinking, will definitely just like kind of keep your mind busy, will maybe make you happy, make you feel warm again, even though it's so cold outside. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in this video and what you thought about them. Do you agree or disagree with me? Do you think these are perfect snow day reads? I'd really love to know. Also, let me know some of your perfect snow day reads, because I'm probably gonna be stuck inside for a couple days and I might need some good snow day reads recommendations. So if you have any books that you think I should definitely check out for a snowy day, then leave them down in the comments because I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!